And there came a day unlike... Wait, no, that's been done. Who knows what evil lurks in... No, that is that other thing. What has yellow skin and rights? Ah, forget it. You're listening to Panelology. Excelsi, oh damn it.
Welcome to episode 248 of Panelology. I'm Alex.
And I am Brian.
We've done it. We have survived January of 2021.
We have.
If you are listening to this, you are listening from February.
Woohoo!
Technically, Brian and I could still bite it in January, but
there's about 14 hours left here. 13 and a half, something like that.
Short of a falling ceiling fan or something like that, I don't know what's gonna take me out because I'm not leaving my house again today.
Well, I have to go do some work on my parents' wire shelves in their closet. So if I impale myself on their wire shelving, that would be about it for me. Yes.
'Twas organization killed the beast.
That's it. Fair enough. I love it.
Okay, well, you know what I love?
Comics?
Future State. Comics in general, Future State specifically.
Yeah, Future State, good stuff.
All right, once again, blah, 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 chronological order by story.
Yes.
We are going to begin at what I think is actually the earliest book of any of them, chronologically. Batman Superman #1. Set in 2025, preceding the events of Arkham Knight's Batgirls, The Next Batman, Catwoman, Gotham City Sirens, Harley Quinn, Grifters, Nightwing, Outsiders, Red Hood, and Robin Eternal.
Yes.
It's the one book in 2025 with Bruce Wayne as Batman.
Correct.
And it's the one book in which Superman shows up in Gotham and very quickly learns, no, this is probably not the place for Superman to be now.
Right? Like, how is Superman a bad thing for showing up? Yeah. When, reasons.
Yeah, which we'll get to. But first, this was written by Jean Lewin Yang. Art is by Ben Oliver. Colors are by Arif Prianto. And letters by Tom Napolitano.
Ben and Arif, holy cow, did you do a good job.
Uh-huh. This is a gorgeous book.
This is beautiful. That kind of, it's an early page, the splash page of Superman catching that train.
Uh-huh.
That is just like, okay, that is just primo stuff right there.
Yeah, this is... I would put it up there as one of my favorite Future State books.
You know what? I think I probably would too. I really, really enjoyed this.
I think part of what puts it there is, in fact, that it gives us this early view of Gotham's status quo changing and how it is changing. I also just, and this is a good thing since he's going to be writing this book ongoing in March, I really like the way Yang writes Batman and Superman together.
I would agree.
That friendship is there, but at least in this book, it's not just about the ways they complement each other. Mm-hmm. It's also a little bit about the ways that they are out of water in each other's environment, or at least that Superman is a little bit of fish out of water in Gotham.
Well, he understands that it's not that it's not what he's used to, and he doesn't know how he normally would deal with something may not be the best approach here.
Yeah. His earnest belief in people comes across a little bit as naivete in this issue.
Yeah.
And as someone who is like a big fan of Superman for his belief in people and his wanting to see the best, I do think there is something interesting about, like, when he is in Gotham, when he is with Batman, if he doesn't trust Batman's read of the situation, like, he will kind of end up a little over his head.
Yeah. I do like, there's some really, really just almost throwaway kind of things that happen that I think help define like these characters and who they are and what their beliefs are. Like there's one point where they're going through the underground and there's these homeless folks who are trying to start a fire in a barrel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like the matches are wet, so he can't get it started. And Superman just literally, as he's walking by, just uses his heat vision, starts it up. And they're like, "Thanks, Superman." He's like, "Glad I could help." And like, you know, keep like just that, like that's him, right? Like even the super minor little kind of things, Superman's gonna do.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to quibble with a word you used a moment ago. I don't think they're throwaway at all. I think they're small and they're little things, but they are like very intentional character beats.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I meant, I guess the way I should have phrased it was not they're throwaway in the sense that they're presented as throwaway moments, but I don't think they are.
Yeah, it's something
Right.
Superman does without thinking twice.
That's 100% correct. That's the right phrasing. Yeah.
And then we get again kind of the flip side there. Batman's like, "Clark, you need to keep a low profile. Not all of us are sitting out here with the world knowing who we are."
Yeah.
Like it's nice to see the contrast between them, and I think that's really effective here.
And then the other thing that I just like, this was totally, I'm guessing this 100% had to be Ben Oliver. I don't think, I would love to see if this was in the script, but when Batman pulls out his USB stick to do something to the computer, it's got a little charm attachments of a Batman head and the Superman shield on it.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
This is my team up flash drive.
This is my world's finest flash drive.
Before we move on, I want to mention the character designs for the people who are using the false face serum.
Yes.
Because they just look great. Like, they're really well designed, and those sort of transitional moments or moments when people can't control the changes also look really like natural but unnerving.
Boy, it's almost like if Ben Oliver did an Animorphs comic book, he would be really good at it, huh?
Oh, that's actually an excellent point. As a side note, if you want an Animorphs comic, there is one out, and it is excellent.
There you
go. Shout out to Chris Grine, who has been on Minds at Yerk to talk about it. Moving on to slightly later in 2025, we are going to talk about Dark Detective #2's backup first.
Okay.
And that is Red Hood. This is written by Josh Williamson. Art is by Giannis Milano-Giannis. Colors by Jordi Belair, and letters by Troy Pateri. And we're talking about this first because it's actually set before the main feature.
Right.
This is one of the big surprises, I think, for me.
I think so too. I was not expecting this.
I was not expecting this to be what it was. I think there are a couple of reasons why it was a surprise for me. One is Red Hood on his own doesn't normally do a lot for me personally.
I can understand that.
And I think that Josh Williamson recognizes some of the dangers of Red Hood on his own because the characters around him and the cast that supports him really do, I think, help sell this story.
He reminds me in some way, which is probably appropriate, of exactly what we said about Deathstroke when Christopher Priest started that run, right? It really is about the supporting cast and the people you put around him that is success or not.
Yeah, and I think the way that this book is set up, it lets him just kind of be silent and brooding so much in ways where his silence and his refusal to respond says what he needs to say.
Agreed.
When he is with magistrate members who are goading him for helping bring in masks, his silence and refusal to commit and refusal to play still sets him as being not part of the joke.
Right. Like,
or not being one of the ones making the joke.
I'm not even going to participate in. Yeah. I'm not even going to give you the reaction you're wanting, right?
And then when we see him with Rose later in the issue, like, she drives so much of that conversation, and he reacts. But he reacts in ways where, again, his pushing back, his resistance is the character, because it's clear that he's uncomfortable in the position he's in.
Yeah. Yeah, and this really puts Rose in a uh, less, like, much, much more like her father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am also, I guess, always 100% here for Jason and Rose, though.
Yeah.
Because this is the second book recently that has paired them off romantically, and yes, 100% here for it.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
The other way that this book surprised me,
She just makes me laugh with some of her phrasing, too.
she does.
Yeah. She gets on the back of his motor, and he's like, "What are you doing?" "I know where his hideout is. Giddy up." Like, what?
Yeah, like, he takes everything so seriously, and she takes nothing seriously.
Yeah.
The other thing that really surprised me about this book is I expect a Red Hood story, especially in, like, the current status quo of Gotham, to be dark, either noir or gritty or grimy, very street, very dirty.
Like you say, especially given the state that it's in. Very Daredevil, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is, like, bright and clean and gleaming. It's one of the most sort of... Utopian is not quite right, but it's almost the aesthetic you see in a utopia.
Yeah.
Versions of Gotham that we have seen in Future State.
It reminds, and not in the content of it in any way, but in the aesthetic of how it's portrayed. It kind of reminds me of that future look that they had in the 50s, like that kind of Fallout type thing.
Yeah.
Where it's, presented in these pastel or bright colors of what the future is going to look like, but it's not, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I was going to say that's I do not know if I have read anything else that Giannis Giannis has drawn, but he and Jordi Belair, I think, really set a very specific, unexpected look that helps play to just how sort of out of place Red Hood is.
Yeah, I'm gonna call an audible and make my quote of the week from here too.
Brian's quote of the week. Quote.
So they go to the Mad Hatter's lair, which is Wonderland Putt Putt.
Yes.
And they go in and they're walking through, and Rose is like, "We should do this more often. Don't get me wrong. I like our usual language of moans and grunts and the occasional scream, but no boy has ever taken me miniature golfing before."
I also love that she doesn't entirely know the difference between Alice in Wonderland and The Wizard of Oz.
Correct. Yes.
We didn't sit around watching movies in my house.
Yep. I love it.
All right. Then we jump forward 2 years to the main story, The Dark Detective. This is written by Mariko Tamaki. Art is by Dan Mora. Colors by Jordi Belair. And letters by Aditya Bidikar. And this continues what we saw a couple of weeks ago.
It does.
With Bruce believed dead in hiding, and gets more into how did the magistrate know that killing Bruce Wayne was killing Batman? Where is Bruce living? All of this.
Why do they think he's dead? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We get that explanation, which is good.
I love Bruce's roommate. I love the idea of Bruce having a roommate.
Yes. Yeah.
Bruce is living with this, like, paranoid, borderline conspiracy theorist who's just right enough for it to be unnerving. He's one of the "they're watching you everywhere" types.
It is. It makes me think very much is if Bruce Wayne had to live Frank Castle's life, and specifically not Punisher, because there's no Punisher in this, but right. Frank Castle, where he has to, like, get in these rat dive holes to live in, and, like, the person is this kind of crazy old coot or has this weird conspiracy thing. Yeah, very
Bruce
much
lives here because it's the one building in the city without any kind of, like, biometric scanners to get in. As a lock and key.
Exactly. And of course he has a daughter who is somehow, either a social activist or resisting from the inside, or one of those things that is going to be trouble.
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah. And the main thrust of this is Bruce learning just how extensive the surveillance by the magistrate is.
Oh man, yeah.
Just also super, super gorgeous. I know we said that with the first issue, and I don't see that ever not being true about this. But
I don't either. And like I said, we talk so much on this show about how there's so many different styles of art, and how it's so important to fit that style to the story that you're telling.
Yeah.
And this 100% does that.
Yeah. I mean, I get if you are listening and you're a fan of a more traditional comic book superhero art style, but style sets so much in terms of tone and how a book feels that when it does it right, it just stands out.
I agree. And that's coming from somebody who does tend to prefer that traditional superhero style. Yeah.
And I absolutely think there's a place for that. That sets its own tone and expectations.
Agreed.
Moving right along. Future State, Aquaman #1. This one is set in 2030, which makes it contemporaneous with Black Racer, Justice League Dark, Superman of Metropolis, Midnighter, Mr. Miracle, Superman Worlds of War, and Nubia.
And to be clear, most of it, the main part of the story takes place there. There is a significant flashback to 6 years before that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
This is written by Brandon Thomas. Art is by Danielle Sampere. Colors are by Adriano Lucas, and letters by Clayton Cowles. What did you think of this one, Brian?
This was simultaneously, the story that it told was kind of exactly what I expected.
Mm-hmm.
But just kind of how they presented it and the way they told surprised me a bit, and I can't say I hate it.
Right off the bat, and I don't know that this actually holds up through the issue as a whole in exactly this way.
Yeah.
But right off the bat, in those first couple of pages, the first thing this made me think of was Saladin Ahmed's Black Bolt.
Oh, I can totally see that.
And I don't hate that, even if it's just kind of giving us that little taste at first.
Yep.
That idea of Jackson being held in prison for no real discernible reason, making his escape
for his own good. I mean, according to them, right? Yeah. Always love that justification. You're making you a prisoner for your own good. What?
Yeah.
What?
Welcome to the prison industrial complex.
Hey. Wait, is this run by Lex Luthor?
I would not be surprised, frankly.
Remember the Wonder Twins?
Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
He at least owns some stakes in the corporation that's probably behind this prison.
Right, fair enough.
Yeah.
No, so I want to talk. So the flashback part of this is kind of Jackson training Andy.
Yes.
Right? And that's really the part that is what I expected.
Yeah.
Right? That's the story that I expected her to kind of be fractious against his training, and all of those things are there, right?
Yeah.
What I didn't expect is this kind of where it opens with him prisoner, 6 years later, and what happens to her at the end of this kind of flashback thing and what that means. I was like, oh, that's very different, and I am all 100% down for this.
Yeah, and we know this happens before Justice League.
Yep.
And I think it's safe to... I know we both kind of err on these are all a single timeline, or at least branches of a single timeline.
Yeah.
But I think it is safe to assume that this is directly in line with Justice League. Because... do you remember what in this issue Justice League referenced?
Is it what she does to herself when that squid picks her up and carries her away?
It's the Confluence as a whole.
Oh, the Confluence. Okay, yeah. No.
We haven't talked about what the Confluence is, but if you recall in Justice League, when she is video chatting with her parents after the meeting.
Yep.
they mention that they are in the confluence with Jackson, but can get back if she needs them.
Right.
The confluence is basically a space-time ocean that connects all the oceans.
Which has been hinted at previously in Aquaman, right?
Yeah, we've certainly seen like a mythology that supports this.
Correct. And
this ocean
because like it
existing.
had to do with like area, even going back in Atlantis to Arion, and like when he called, people from across the confluence. I don't think they called it the confluence then, but like people from across this intergalactic connected ocean.
Yeah. Well, it's what
responded.
we saw in the Justice League Aquaman crossover
Exactly.
during Snyder's run.
Yep.
On
Exactly.
Justice League. Yeah.
But I got to go back and look at the Justice League book now.
Uh-huh.
Did Andy have a prosthetic left lower leg?
I can grab my copy real quick and check.
I can open it. I got it here. Hold on.
Okay.
Let's see. Let's go here. Let's go to. If I just look up Future State, I can probably get it very quickly. Let's see. Future State. Justice League. I want that one. Because, that shocked me a bit when she did that little move.
If memory serves, she's like wearing pants or tights or something like that. So we just may not know.
Yeah. She's wearing kind of a unitard. Yeah, we just don't know. Because she's wearing like this solid green kind of Mara-ish outfit.
Yeah. Of course, it's also a nice callback to the time Aquaman had to cut off his own arm.
Yeah.
This just proves the Currys are the Skywalkers of the ocean.
But yeah, like how that was left, that flashback was left, and then what we are given to understand it means now to Jackson in the future, who definitely goes all Samson.
Yeah.
On him, is I don't know that this is my favorite Future State book, but it might be the one that I'm most looking forward to the next issue of.
Yeah, I could see that.
Right. Because, like, holy crap, I gotta know what happens now.
This one's definitely up there for me.
Yeah.
I've actually thought about trying to rank them and throw that on Twitter or the website somewhere just after month one.
God, that would be so hard.
It would be so hard. Let's move on to Suicide Squad. The main feature here is set in 2030. It is written by Robbie Thompson with art by Javier Fernandez, colors by Alex Sinclair, and letters by Wes Abbott. Also, it's on Earth 3.
It is, and by far the strangest Justice League we've been introduced to yet.
Yes, that is 100%
Justice
true.
Squad we've been introduced to.
I had to double check how things lined up here, because if you remember in Flash, we got a reference to the the Suicide Squad being sent over to 2030.
Mm-hmm.
But Flash is actually set in 2027, so I wonder if maybe these published years are a little more fluid. I think we've got some other evidence that they are potentially more fluid than what the Future State sampler maybe implied.
Well, I mean, the other thing to remember is, potentially there is, time that before they actually get sent, or we don't know how long they've been here prepping for this part.
Sure.
Or, yeah. So.
But just maybe a grain of salt in all these times, even though we're organizing that way.
Sure.
Yeah, so we have... Do we want to bang through this roster really quickly?
I think we can get through the roster fast enough. Sure. We've got Connor Kent as Superman.
Yep.
And let's just say Connor Kent partially raised or finishing his being raised by Amanda Waller is an absolutely fucking horrible idea. So
bad.
Oh my word. Then instead of Martian Manhunter, we have another shapeshifter of sorts.
This made me laugh.
This was my favorite one. We have Clayface as Martian Manhunter. Okay.
Just absolutely wild.
Yeah. We have an Australian Teen Titan who known as Bolt, who is Flash.
Yep.
We have a xenoform, so an alien ocean creature. Maybe he's from the Confluent. As Aquaman. Specifically, it's being controlled by. So, whoever the hell he is, he's controlled by the xenoform that used to look like a helmet. Now I think it's that ugly fucking shirt.
Yep.
I love that. Yeah. So it is Fisherman, right?
Yes.
Who was in the Crime Syndicate. He's the only Crime Syndicate person that's here, right?
Well, we see some others
Maybe.
eventually.
Yeah, but I mean that's in this
roster, yeah.
roster of Justice Squad, right? Yeah. There's Hypnotic Woman, who is presenting herself through illusion as Wonder Woman.
Yep.
And then William Cobb as Batman.
The Talon.
Damn. Even fascism needs its foot soldiers. Like, damn.
Oof.
That is. And it is. Yeah. When the good people, which I mean it is Earth 3, so I guess this fits, right? When the good folks are Sinestro and Brainiac and Mongal, who is Starfire as Mongol, I guess.
Yep. That's exactly how I read it.
Okay. That's wow. Oh man. This is a wild ride.
Yeah.
And let's say the Amanda Waller of Earth 3 is nowhere near as hesitant to execute on her threats as the Amanda Waller of Earth 0.
No, she is not. But the good news is there is a group on its way to mess with Amanda Waller's machinations.
Yeah.
The Suicide Squad.
The Suicide Squad. Yeah. Yeah, and they don't all make it either, because apparently being on Earth 3 is poisonous to them.
I guess we're maybe bringing back some version of the Earth 3 as antimatter.
Okay.
That's the simplest explanation to me, right? Like
maybe.
There was that period of time where Earth 3 was the antimatter Earth, and too much contact between Earth 3 and Earth 1 would kill. Yeah.
This is a different Suicide Squad.
Yes.
Yeah. Led by Peacemaker, which I'm down for.
Yeah, I think this is more or less the roster who we see in the April solicitations.
I think it is, yeah.
Which makes sense because that's also Robbie Thompson writing.
Yep. I'm all down for this.
Yep. This also makes maybe that solicitation a little more ominous, because that starts off with Amanda Waller trying to recruit Connor.
Right. Yes. Yeah, don't let that happen.
No.
Please.
No.
Yeah.
Then we have our second feature here, which is Black Adam.
Uh-huh.
This is set in the year 82,020.
The 853rd century. What? Okay.
821st, I think.
Nope, I'm looking. Watchtower Mogo, 853rd century.
Oh.
Now, I don't know when that's from, but, I don't know where the calendar is counting from at that point. But
well, that's fair.
Yeah. Can I say, though, that the idea of the living planet Mogo as the JLA Watchtower is primo.
Look, I am always here for Mogo. Anytime Mogo wants to be at the table, or I guess holding the table, Mogo is welcome.
Damn, yeah. You need a Green Lantern in the Justice League? Get a whole planet.
Yeah.
Love it. I love it.
I love that we learn that.
Have we ever heard this? I don't know that we have, but you know what an idea just occurred to me that is like the coolest thing I've thought of in a long time?
What's that?
Well, because Green Lanterns are all about their willpower, right? What if the willpower of Mogo is dependent on the collective willpower of all the people inhabiting him at the time.
I don't think that's how Mogo works, but I think that's a super cool idea.
Right? Jump on that, creative teams. Yeah, I love that.
Like, I guess you would have some kind of hive mind species.
Could
and
be.
If one of them is the Green Lantern, all of them are the Green Lantern?
Sort of, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah,
TM, call us DC.
Sure, you got it.
Call Brian. I'm not going to claim his idea.
No, I came up with it on the show, so it's technically panelology.
Okay.
As a whole, yeah.
That's right. I forgot about that rider in your contract.
Exactly, yep. Yep, you got it.
I love that we learned that here in the far, far future, Wonder Woman and Teth Adam are a thing.
Yeah. But I don't know that this is Diana.
I don't know that it's not, though, because Diana's still alive.
Sure. It's an interesting look for her if it is.
Well, a lot maybe has happened in the last 80,000 years.
Sure.
We had speculated at perhaps what the solicited threat from the past that would show up here might be. As it turns out, it's maybe the threat that makes the most sense.
Maybe.
It's the 7 deadly sins.
Sure. Well.
And friends.
That's exactly what I was going to say,
yeah. And friends, including a very old-looking Vandal Savage.
Yeah. And who was with Vandal Savage? This was like maybe my favorite. I was like, oh, damn. It's Teakle.
Yes.
Who is the familiar of Clarion, former familiar of Clarion, because he ate Clarion, the Witch Boy.
Frankly, I think that actually moves Teakle from being villain to hero.
As opposed to hero turned villain, Dove.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know what? If I had to put up with Hawk all the time, too, though.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. Okay. Am I the only one noticed when they so that this whole group collectively, so these characters and the Sin, are collectively known as the Unkindness, right? Or is the Unkindness that particular being? That's my question.
I think the Unkindness is the entity.
Okay.
The group.
And on the Unkindness's chest, is that very definitely some sort of Shazam bolt? Because it kind of looks that way to me. Or Shazam-ish bolt.
You're talking about the child?
Nope, not the child. The black silhouette figure with the 4 eyes and...
Oh, I thought that was Child.
Oh, no, Child is the one kind of behind him that's like the praying mantis-looking arms and...
Oh, I guess you're right.
Yeah.
Huh, that one doesn't have...
That doesn't have their own name. That hence the reason I was wondering if they are... That specific entity is the Unkindness, right?
I guess you're right. That probably is the Unkindness. Okay, yes. So it's the Unkindness, the last Lords of Chaos.
Right, there you go.
And the 7 deadly sins.
Yes.
Yes, so that entity, I think, is the Unkindness.
Okay.
And that does look like some sort of black lightning bolt.
It does, and there's definitely some female proportions drawn on this character.
Sure.
And there's 4 eyes.
And what looked like maybe some sort of mandible parts around
maybe,
the mouth.
Like, I'm really wondering if this is Raven.
Oh, I get it. An unkindness of...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
You know, I think you're onto something there, Brian.
Well, specifically because Pride looks a whole lot like Donna Troy.
I'm just going to have to keep this page
open.
open.
Just keep this page open because we're going to talk about these just because like I want to go through a couple of these things here.
Okay. Pride does have a very Donna vibe, you're right.
Greed very much looks like Mr. Mitchell Spitlick or maybe like an old toy man.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely got a tiny bowler hat.
Let's see.
I'm going to go with Toy Man because of the backpack full of guns.
Yeah, that's fair. That's very fair. We've got Envy, who may be a form of the Riddler of some sort.
Maybe.
And please tell me Lust is... I don't know. I don't know who Lust is.
Well, that red hair certainly makes me think of Wally West.
Right, maybe?
And this was the thing I went back and double-checked.
Oh,
It's
no.
not the 7 deadly sins in Teen Titans. It is the 4 horsemen.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I think somebody said something. Hold on, let me check this real quick. So I think it's at the back real quick when Wonder Woman is fighting them. Yeah, so Lust is a female because Wonder Woman says her touch, it's intoxicating.
Gotcha.
So I don't know who that is.
And as I look at this
No, I'm
too,
lost.
kind of the sort of purple fire coming up behind the unkindness is very sort of Raven spreading her cloak.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't really have any doubt, in fact, that you're right.
But yeah, this is just this is a mess. Wow.
A good, they are in a mess. The issue is not a mess.
Oh,
yes.
no. Yeah. No, absolutely. I love the fact that there's a cyber asteroid world that is an artificial world that calculated the odds of surviving the arrival of this group of people and just decided to self-detonate and just blow itself up.
Yep. That's one way to do it. That feels very Mark Russell,
Right.
in fact.
It does.
Odds of survival are, nope, we're good.
See ya.
We also have, Superman lives in the sun.
Yes. And he is like gold Superman now.
Yeah.
Because he's absorbed so much solar radiation. Yeah.
I am really interested to see what the second half of this brings, especially
Me
with Wonder
too.
Woman's little revelation at the end.
Yeah. Well, and so she her skin is her skin makes me think of Platinum, the Metal Man. But we find out at some point she says something about she was literally a statue brought to life, which makes me wonder if it's Diana because that who knows.
Well, and maybe it's not. But...
Right. And then let's just say Wrath makes a tactical error. Oops.
Yep.
Oopsie. Yeah. Oh, I do. I really, really, really love this. And then what may be my favorite thing of the whole thing is the character that shows up on the last page. How have these two characters never been combined into a single entity before?
I don't know, but having read April and March and April solicitations, that character will be in Infinite Frontiers in The Flash,
which is maybe the most exciting character concept I have seen in a very long time.
Agreed, 100%. Very much here for it.
Yep.
Let's talk now about Superman vs. Imperious Lex #1, which definitely wins for best title.
Yep. Speaking of Mark Russell, right?
Yep. We are in the year 2050, which is the same time that Kara Zor-El Superwoman and Yara Flor happen.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Russell wrote this. Artist is Steve Pugh, colorist is Romulo Fajardo Jr., and letterer is Carlos M. Mangual.
Yeah. We have the United Planets. Their headquarters is on Earth.
In Metropolis, in fact.
And apparently Lois Lane is now the Earth's representative to the United States.
Yeah.
Which I'm totally down for. Especially given, I think it's interesting there's been so many different kind of deceased, right? And other things where recently where Lois Lane has been presented and kind of stepped up as a major leadership role of Earth or the remaining forces or I think that's super interesting.
We've had President Superman,
right,
who I love. We've had Lex Luthor as president, which is, I think, a fun plot line. But the one that, frankly, at the end of the day is most realistic is probably Lois Lane as president.
Sure.
I could absolutely see, Lois Lane being, you know what? I can only do so much writing about what's happening. Let me get my hands dirty and actually make things happen.
Well, especially I can see her specifically in this role as Earth's ambassador, because it seems like the United Planets, which her son kind of instigated, right?
Yep.
Is something that isn't, for lack of a better word, corrupted by politics, like so many other organizations are. At least
it's
not
more
yet.
Aspirational.
There you go. That's fair. That's a good way to place it. Yeah. Sorry, I'm laughing at the when they envision cutting off Luther's new planet and like quarantining it, essentially embargoing it, right? That they have a sign on the moon of the planet that says "Planet unavailable until further notice."
Yeah,
like that's such a Mark Russell thing.
It's like an exit ramp closed
exactly.
sign.
Sorry, folks, park's closed.
Yeah,
moon out front. Should have told you.
Yeah. Lex Luthor has his own planet. It wants to join the United Planets. Everyone laughs this off, and then Superman shows up and says, so turns out he was raiding all these other planets with his robots. I shut down that operation. And now he wants to join basically because he's out of resources and doesn't want his people to murder him.
Yeah. So, I love this concept of Lex went to the furthest edge of the galaxy he could find to get away from Superman. Right?
Space New Zealand, if you will.
Sure. Space New Zealand. And, set himself up as ruler of this planet and, made these robots to go out and basically strip mine other planets for all their resources. All of his citizens are living super, super well. They all love him. They are, imagine a super oil-rich country where all the citizens are amazingly wealthy and have a great life.
Now, when you say super oil-rich, you mean oil-rich because they have gone and stolen the oil from a bunch of other countries?
Sure could be.
Okay. Imagine a country like that.
Yeah. His people all love him. And when Superman shows up and has destroyed their robots that go out and, do this harvesting for them, and then come down and destroy the factory, all the people hate him.
Yep.
All the people on this planet hate him because, they had a good life, not realizing, and probably in some cases not caring that it was on the backs of others.
Well, this is why ultimately Superman is like, no, we need to let Lexor enter the United Planets because his people are pawns in all of this.
Right.
It feels in a lot of ways like Mark Russell is writing about what do you do with the people who have been fleeced by, let's say, certain contemporary fascist leaders.
Well, and even those who are passively in support or do support, right? These leaders, the point is, if you react to them the way they would react to you, then how are you better? Right?
Yeah.
Like, I get that it's harder to extend a hand and accept, but the only way to change people is to show them the right way to behave. I mean, yeah.
Well, and to remember that a lot of them, not all, there are bad actors who are helping
everywhere.
But the average person who gets pulled into a movement like this,
correct, is pulled into it,
is operating on bad information that they are given by someone else. Correct. Does it account for racism, etc., that you find in the real world? No, obviously not. But the propaganda side of it is really what I think he's on to.
I do. I agree with you. Yeah. So anyway, very interesting. Of course it is Mark Russell writing. And yeah.
And finally, for Future State, Legion of Superheroes #1. In the year 3000, further into the year 3000, written by Brian Michael Bendis, or we'll say the 31st century. The time jump from the regular Legion book is intentionally nebulous. Written by Brian Michael Bendis, art by Riley Rossmo, colors by Ivan Placencia, and letters by Dave Sharp. This is, I think, the issue that trades the most on the reader asking, holy fuck, what's going on?
Well, Yeah, because that's certainly the question I'm asking. Like, I don't. Yeah.
You are not caught up on Legion yet, are you?
Not completely. No, I think about 3 or 4 issues back. Yeah.
So if you read the back of this issue, Bendis talks about, well, what do you do when you're already writing a book set in the future? You set it further in the future, but being intentionally vague about how much further in the future this is. It could be weeks, it could be years. In this interview, which I'm sure by now he has an answer to this, but at least in the interview he plays coy about, who knows, maybe we don't go back to the timeline we were in when Legion comes back. Maybe we just stick with this timeline. Or this point in time. All of that, I think, plays in what, for me at least, is kind of a fun way on, wait, did we miss the Great Darkness coming? Because Legion has been lately about this great darkness that is on the horizon. Did it already happen? Are we past it? Is kind of the question I'm asking.
Right.
Is whatever Element Lad did related
to
the Great Darkness? Or
Yeah.
was it what they're calling the Great Darkness? This is, I think, one of the very few Future State books that you actually get more out of from having read what came before it in the series than just starting on it cleanly. I think even more so than, say, Batman or Catwoman.
Yeah.
Basically, at this point, the United Planets have collapsed. It sounds like they lasted months. Or sorry, the Legion has collapsed. It sounds like they have lasted months. The United Planets have also collapsed. It's all Element Lad's doing, maybe. And basically just everything is kind of in tatters, and you see different factions trying to form and either fill a leadership vacuum on individual planets, or reestablish the Legion, or, find some way through the chaos.
Can I say my favorite character a character moment in this is, I'm going to call her Triplicate Girl.
Yes. Is it the 3 panels?
But it's her whole storyline of this.
Gotcha.
We find out that one of her parts, one of her selves is gone, and like there's a like one of them is like, oh, we've been toying with calling ourselves Duo Damsel, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of a joke. But they're talking, and she says, she is asked, when was the last time you two merged? And she's like, we try not to do that anymore if we can. It's better that way. That's when we really feel her missing.
Well, and that line is spread out over the 3 panels. Yep. I was alluding to.
Because there's one of them in the first panel, one of them in the second panel, and then nobody in the third panel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like super. Yeah. Oh, that. And then what has to be the best use of Bouncing Boy of all time, bar none. Bar none.
I absolutely believe it. Bouncing Boy is just like going full Juggernaut on a space fleet.
He's literally bouncing between space starships, exploding them as he goes through, like pinballing off of them.
I was about to say, if there were a Legion of Superheroes pinball machine, he would be the ball.
Of course he would. Yeah, I love it.
I also like this kind of really unsettling floating head amorphous body Brainiac 8.
Yes. Agreed.
There's a lot of cool character design here. I think Triplicate Girl's character design is great. I also really love Saturn Girl's weird Mega Man cosplay design.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, I've seen this design in a lot of the promo material for Future State. I did not realize until reading this that, oh, that is Saturn Girl. I expected that to be some kind of villain.
Yeah.
I still don't know that I can totally answer what the fuck is going on.
Yeah, I don't know that I can either. But this is definitely the most out there of the books.
Yeah. I am also really curious to see what does Bendis decide to do when Legion returns.
Yep.
Which has still not been solicited. One more DC book. This is not Future State. But I wanted to at least briefly talk about the other history of the DC Universe, number 2.
Which I'm about halfway through.
Story by John Ridley. Layouts by Giuseppe Camuncoli. Finishes by Andrea Cucci. Colors are by Jose Villarrubia, and letters are by Steve Wands. I loved the first one. I might actually like this one even more.
This one's really cool. I think this I think has something going for it that the first one didn't.
I bet it's the same thing that I'm about to point to. What
the
is
fact
it,
that we have two narrators for it?
Yes.
Yeah.
The thing that makes this stand out over the first one to me is that it is not a conversation between Karen and Mal, but each of them is writing their own narrative and sort of responding to what the other says in these chunks of narrative.
Yeah, I agree. And it does. It gives us it's a much more powerful storytelling tool, I think.
Yeah.
Well, because you get those different perspectives. Like Mal will say something and she'll say, "Yeah, he's not wrong, but you also need to know this." Or yeah.
Well, and it to that ends, like it does not play into the idea of an unreliable narrator, because I don't think either of them is unreliable. You're just getting what is the truth for each of them.
Correct.
And because this is also not just about their place in history, but their relationship with each other.
Yep.
Seeing where their truths are different and then where they kind of come back in line gives us, I think, so much about what works about their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Even in the moments where like they're most in opposition, where it just kind of ends with Mal going, "Damn, that's cold." I surprised is not the right word for how I feel about this series, because I think it makes sense that you've got someone who is a really strong writer coming in and telling well-researched stories and they're being this good, but I think it stands out as something totally unique.
I agree. It is definitely unique.
Yeah.
In a good way, in my opinion.
Yes, absolutely. It's... If you're not reading the individual issues of this when it is collected, please check it out.
Oh yeah, this would be a super powerful collected gift to give to someone, I think. Yeah.
The only other thing that kind of struck me in this one that I think is worth mentioning is Supergirl actually plays kind of a role in this narrative as well. I was surprised to see her as sort of connective tissue between the books. These characters' responses to her showing up, and then Jefferson's responses to, "Oh, here's another super person."
Yeah, I haven't gotten that far through it yet. So
okay.
I will.
I think that stands out to me here because, if not entirely, then almost exclusively Karen is the one to talk about Supergirl, and it is a very sort of intersectional approach to, look, we've got nothing alike, but I hate that she's had this sort of cloistered experience.
Yeah.
Because she could have learned so much more if she were in with the Titans or in with just other young female superheroes and not raised off to the side by a dude.
Huh. Yeah.
Yeah. Just check it out if you haven't. At some point, you absolutely need to.
So good.
Brian.
Yes.
There was a great segue a few books back to talk to this, and you know what? Sometimes you just have to let them fly by.
Yep.
Tell me about an Unkindness of Ravens, number 5.
So this is written by...
However, did you piece together who that character might be?
This is written by Dan Panosian, illustrated by Mariana Ignazi, colored by Fabiana Mascalo, and lettered by Mike Fiorentino. This is book 5 of 4. So this was originally scheduled to be 4, and they needed to stretch it out a bit. In this one, we get Wilma coming to full realization and meeting someone who is able to kind of explain everything to her. So she now kind of has the whole story, and what she chooses to do with that, and we definitely get the two sides of this faction set up. We have the Ravens on one side, and we have the Survivors. Yeah, the Survivors is what they call themselves. And essentially what we find out is this dates all the way back to like the Salem witch trials, right? Where the forerunners of the survivors, funnily enough, accused the witches there in Salem who became their descendants became the Ravens. And so it's very definitely where those in power have rewritten the narrative to vilify, those who they wanted to, ostracize. And that for the most part, the Ravens and their descendants and all this never wanted any of this. They just wanted to have their lives, but, didn't have much of a choice in it. And we get Wilma stepping into her place in the Ravens, and a very, very shocking revelation on the last page, which leads me to think that they certainly have set this up where there could be more in the future if it's successful.
Cool.
Very much enjoyed this, though.
Awesome. I want to do a very quick King in Black roundup.
Okay.
We have a pair of issues this week. First is Daredevil number 26, which is really pulling double duty as continuing the Daredevil story while also tying into King in Black. If you are not totally caught up on this, you might want to jump forward, I don't know, a couple minutes, because I will talk about a big spoiler from a recent issue. With Matt in prison, we see Elektra as Daredevil dealing with the King in Black symbiotes in the street. And really there are kind of three threads to this. We see hers, which is pretty straightforward, but is really her dealing with the weight of wearing the mantle of Daredevil. There's a Kingpin thread, which is about Kingpin and Typhoid Mary, who is, I guess, his bodyguard now. And they are at an event when King in Black strikes, and Kingpin is rushed to safety, but while she is fighting off the King in Black, she gets taken and nullified. And then we have Matt in prison, sensing, hearing the sound of chatter about the symbiotes coming in and smelling them and hearing them. And then, begging the guards to let him help fight. And I'll leave it there, but he gets his wish. And that was written by Chip Zdarsky, with pencils by Marco Cicchetto and Mike Hawthorne, inks by Adriano De Benedetto, colors by Mario Mintz, and letters by Clayton Cowles. Then we have Deadpool number 10, which I'm going to say forlorn to learn is the last issue of Deadpool, to be written by Kelly Thompson. Pencils were by Gerardo Sandoval, inks by Victor Nava and Gerardo Sandoval, colors by Chris Sotomayor, and letters by Joe Sabino. This is appropriately self-referential. Deadpool has to fight some King in Black dragons and builds a team of Monster Island monsters to help him do so, along with Elsa Bloodstone and, of course, Jeff. If you have ever wanted to see a nullified Jeff, you will get to see that here.
My God, I can't wait.
But the bit of self-referential and honestly really clever storytelling is at one point Deadpool's like, yeah, so we had a much longer plan for this, but sometimes books get canceled. The good news is, when we made our prophecy 8 issues ago about me getting eaten by a dragon, we had other plans for that, but hey, it's a dragon, so I can tie up this loose end. It's a fantastic issue.
You know what they say, never look a gift dragon in the mouth.
That's right.
Or he'll eat you.
Unless you are Donkey from Shrek. Then he'll just want waffles. Waffles, pancakes. Which
waffles.
Was it? Waffles.
It's
okay.
waffles.
I thought it was, but then I waffled. Anyway, it was a really solid issue, and I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess the most fun you'll have with a King in Black issue.
Not surprising.
And finally, we visit Krakoa, as is ritual for us now.
As is.
First up, we have New Mutants number 15. This is written by Vita Ayala with art by Rod Reese, letters by Travis Lanham, and designed by Tom Moeller. I love this book so incredibly much.
Me too. And this, what's so interesting is how much I loved it, even though this was 100% a character setup issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. And still I loved it.
There are a lot of moving parts for kind of establishing cast member status quos and what's going on with them. And we don't see a lot of action. We see just hanging out before and during parties and talking.
One day, some writer is going to let Rainey be happy for more than like 5 minutes.
I will be honest, I do not have a long history with the character, but I already very much want this for her. Come on.
Yeah, and that literally, that has been her story, is every time something good happens to her, it gets ripped away, or she gets captured and mistreated, or what. Like, she just they can't let her stay happy for any length of time.
I feel like there are certain characters who and they're almost always female characters, who just have to constantly be made miserable for storytelling purposes.
And to be fair, it's not always. I know why you would say that, because I think they're easier to see that way. But there are other characters like Daredevil who was like that.
No, absolutely. Right? Yeah. And like, I mean, I've said the same thing about Daredevil too before. Like, the stories where he's allowed to grow and do something different and be happy are always my favorites. But I think there is, out of the 70s and 80s in particular, and where I was going was, I think Carol Danvers was one of those characters, for example. Janet Van Dyne has been one of those characters.
Definitely.
And we've seen over the last...
Donna Troy was.
Donna Troy. Well, I don't know that Donna Troy supports exactly what I was about to say, which is we've seen over the last few years a lot of these characters start to get to move past just those traumas.
Yeah.
I mean, you can look at Rogue and Scarlet Witch and their relationship, or Rogue and Captain Marvel and their relationship. Like, there are even whole relationships that are kind of built that way.
Agreed.
But fingers crossed that maybe finally she can move into that group who gets to do more than have trauma inflicted upon.
Well, and there's another character in here who we've been introduced to recently who's kind of being set up this way. And I'm hoping it like they very quickly move her, which is Kaz.
Yeah.
Right? That's and the other thing that I liked about that storyline in here is, like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with what Danny says and from her perspective, but it doesn't take into account how Kaz feels.
Yeah, and I think what works about it, and I agree that, like, it doesn't need to become this character's whole identity.
Right.
But what works about it is it does feel like something just a normal human in the real world would work through at that age. I don't like the way I look. My body has changed in these ways. And I feel like Danny's response is a very normal, real-world response that would be met exactly that way.
Yeah. Yep.
Also, Rod Reese's art.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can beautiful. I tell you, and I don't know what it is about it, but can I tell you how much I love Doug and Bay together? And just the fact that her name is Bay. Like,
yeah.
Like, come on.
That
that was 100% intentional going into this, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure. There's just so much, I think, immediate appeal in that you could not pick two more different characters who just kind of, like, fucking go with it and support each other.
Yeah. It's so amazing. I love it.
I do wonder if we'll see Ronnie's plotline pick up in X Factor at some point. That seems like Seems like it should.
It does.
Next up is Excalibur, number 17. This was written by Teenie Howard. Art is by Marcus Toe. Colors are by Eric Arciniega. Letters by Ariana Marr. And designed by Tom Muller. I guess we know where Betsy is now.
We do. And can I tell you how much I want, even if it's just a miniseries of Queen Betsy in this world?
Yes. I tweeted, I don't know if you've seen the cover to Daredevil. Sorry, not Daredevil, Deadpool.
I've got it here. I can look. Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, both of them sitting on the throne like this.
I need just like even a one shot of Betsy as queen dealing with trade negotiations with Monster Island with Daredevil as king.
She would get so damn frustrated so fast.
Just absolutely immediately, but it would be hilarious.
Can I also tell you, like, just the setup of Warren is essentially the consort of Betsy in this world.
Yeah.
But they can't get married because he's American and not British. But his ex is Quanon.
And that is who he calls to bodyguard Betsy for the issue? No matter what Earth you're on, Warren is always going to be out of touch.
Like, you couldn't have just, which they did, obviously, they just created this, but you could not have come up with something more awkward in every possible way.
I mean,
maybe the only thing that was more awkward is if Betsy and Quanon were somehow having some secret relationship themselves in this world, and Betsy got thrown into it. I don't know.
It would have to be a menage a trois with,
right? Oh my god,
with Phantomex in the mix.
Oh, shit.
Which I guess at that point is like a menage a quinte.
But I love the scenes with Betsy and Quanon in this.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It really is.
Wolverine number 9 has Wolverine going down to the auction. This is written by Benjamin Percy. Art is by Adam Kubert. Colors by Frank Martin. Letters and production by Corey Pettit. And design by, you guessed it, Tom Muller.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciated not only just how kind of fun the premise of this issue is,
mm-hmm.
but also there is a good deal of plot happening in background of panels.
Yes.
That they don't make a huge meal out of.
Nope.
There's one moment that kind of highlights it, which led me to go back and look through every panel background before it. Wolverine loses a little blood at one point, and borrows a handkerchief from Kingpin, which he drops, and then a person with a peacock arm picks it up.
Yep.
Who we have seen before as the person manipulating events in X Factor.
Yeah.
Not X Factor, X Force.
X Force. Yep.
Beyond that, this issue is about Wolverine trying to save Richter from the auction block.
Can I say how I am not normally a huge fan of...
Not Richter, Maverick.
Yeah, Maverick, right. I'm not normally a huge fan of flashbacks, specifically of the ones that like, oh, you know, this was our time, and that are just explanation flashbacks.
Yeah.
Right? I think this one uses it pretty well.
I agree with you. This is, I think, the part of Wolverine as a character that I sort of struggled the most with in getting into reading Wolverine comics.
Agreed, 100%.
I don't remember most of my history, and therefore I can have these flashbacks as convenient, like, character development, Deus Ex Machina, whatever.
Yep.
But here it's built on such a specific relationship.
That's what
and not about
say.
Any particular event.
It is used 100% for a singular purpose.
Yeah.
And none of them are more than one page at a time, which is also the right way to do it, by the way.
I also want to talk about those pages themselves, which are, 16 panel?
Yes.
They're 16 panel pages where, say, 3/4 of those panels are a single image that has been split up and is colored in kind of a desaturated way, with then panels that are happening concurrently as individual moments. Like, for instance, a page of Sabretooth being Sabretooth, but then with little snippets of conversation between Wolverine and Maverick.
Right.
That are colored to be more this is happening in real time.
Yeah.
I don't know that it translates to an audio medium super well, but they are gorgeous, gorgeous pages.
They are. And like I said, and they lead us to a specific point of like a phrase that's used and why it's used. And, that is what Wolverine needs now. So,
yeah.
like I said, I think it's used very well here.
I agree.
Yeah.
The last X-Men book out this week is X-Men number 17, which is written by Jonathan Hickman, pencils are by Brett Booth, inks by Adelso Corona, art by Sonny Go, letters by Clayton Cowles, and design by Tom Moeller. And we are not going to talk about it, because Brett Booth has repeatedly been accused of sexual harassment and has made public statements that are wildly racist or xenophobic toward members of certain religions, and we don't want to promote that. So we're gonna sit this one out because of his inclusion on the creative team.
Yeah.
And that brings us to, is it still good? Brian, pay attention. You've got one in here.
I've got, wait, I do?
You do?
No, I do.
Yeah, I'm process of elimination. You know which one it is, too. You just have to listen for it.
Which one it is, yeah.
Something is Killing the Children, number 14. We finally spend some quality time with the entity in Erica's doll. We only find them when they're dead, number 5. We finally learn what caused the conflict between Georges and Paula. Batman, Black and White, number 2. There are 5 stories in this one. I am going to point at a couple that I thought were really solid, although they were all very strong. There's a fun Catwoman story called All Cats Are Grey by Sophie Campbell. That is an entirely silent story that is just adorable and fun and a great Selena moment. And then there's a story called The Devil is in the Details, which is written and drawn by David Aja. That is the rare exception to my frustration with horizontal page layouts, in which Aja has written and drawn a story entirely in 40s style Batman comic strips from newspapers. Strange Adventures number 8. The war with the Picts has come to Earth. And is not going great. The Department of Truth number 5. We learn maybe some more truth about our main character being groomed his entire life for his role in what's going on. Nailbiter Returns, number 9. The Eyes Have It. I also learned this week that that's the next issue of Nailbiter Returns is the last issue, and I am bummed. The Amazing Spider-Man, number 58. Brian.
Martin Lee returns to Feast. We get some insight into how things were from his perspective. Peter goes to have a conversation with Liz Allen about Harry. And Normie reveals that, sorry, Mom, things aren't what you thought they were. And Spider-Man confronts some demons.
Captain Marvel, number 25. We learn that not even Amora the Enchantress is immune to a parent's love for their child. Fantastic Four, number 28. We see some nullification that has nothing to do with Null. Shang-Chi, number 5. Shang-Chi and his sister work through their family trauma, and he takes his place in the family. He's trying to find a way not to use the word family twice, but whoops.
Sometimes you gotta do.
Sometimes you gotta.
Do what you gotta do. Yeah.
Strange Academy, number 7. Emily learns about her actions' costs both magical and non. This week's books. Brian, we've got a bunch this week.
Okay, let's do it.
The quick future state rundown. Harley Quinn #2, Stephanie Phillips, Simone DeMeo, and Tony Infante.
Yes.
Superman of Metropolis #2, with a main story by Sean Lewis and John Timms, Guardian by Sean Lewis and Coley Hamner, and Mr. Miracle by Brandon Easton and Valentine DeLandro. Swamp Thing #2 from Rom V and Mike Perkins. The Flash #2 from Brandon Vietti and Brandon Peterson. The Next Batman #3 with a main feature by John Ridley and Laura Braga, Outsiders by Brandon Thomas and Sumit Kumar, and Arkham Knights by Paul Jenkins and Jack Herbert, and Wonder Woman #2 by Joel Jones. Some non-future state stuff. Deep Beyond #1 of 12 from Mirka Andolfo and Andrea Briccardo. I'm getting some like eldritch horror in space vibes from what I've seen about this book.
Mm-hmm.
But just in general, if it's Mirka Andolfo, I'm going to check it out. Luna, #1 of 5. This made both our lists. It's by Maria Jove. Tell me about it, Brian.
This is it's solicited as for fans of Faithless and Die. It is about a girl named Teresa who is plagued by prophetic dreams and tries to figure out what's going on. And there's apparently a whole world that she's getting into with immortality and magic and alchemy, and it sounds cool.
King in Black, Black Knight comes out this week as well. This is by Cy Spurrier and Jesus Saiz, and is being touted as sort of updating the Black Knight for hopefully a more prominent role in Marvel Comics. Certainly expecting him to have a more prominent role in the MCU, with him being a figure in Eternals.
Yeah.
Fear Case #1. Tell me about it, Brian.
Yeah, that's Matt Kent with art by Tyler Jenkins. There is a no-nonsense Secret Service agent, and his partner is a New Age person. So very, kind of odd couple-ish thing. And they're tasked with investigating the fact that there is this case called the Fear Case that has shown up at like some of the greatest disasters and tragedies throughout history.
Cool.
Yeah.
And finally, Spectre and Spectres #1 of 5.
Yeah, this is written by Bowen McCurdy and Caitlin Musto, and the art is by Bowen McCurdy. And this is from Boom, and this is very much like a kind of modern retelling, regrouping of like a Scooby-Doo gang type. They investigate ghosts and mysteries, and yeah.
Awesome. I believe that does it. Do you have anything else, Brian?
I got nothing else, man.
In that case, we would like to thank Chase Parker for our intro voiceover. You can visit us at panelologypodcast.com. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/panelology. Get merch at bit.ly/panelologymerch, capital P, capital M. Or send us questions and comments at bit.ly/panelologymailbag, capital P, capital M. If you've listened to all of the outro, I'll also give you a heads up. Later this week, you'll get an April solicitations episode from Jin and me. Look for that probably Thursday-ish. I'm Alex.
And I am Brian. Go read those sweet, sweet comics.